Blog Talk Radio.
Hey, what up, Q? What up, Radio World?
My name is Quincy, and this is my show, the Talk to Q Radio Show. It's almost like posting a blog, except I'm doing it live.
All right, everyone. Thank you for listening to another special Q on One edition podcast of the Talk to Q Radio Show. My name is Quincy, and this is my show. And I am joined by a guest from across the pond from the UK. Please welcome Mr. Grimez, Poet Warrior, to the Talk to Q Radio Show. Mr. Grimez, what's going on?
What's good? Thank you for having me on your show. It is a pleasure.
All right, and thanks for agreeing to join. And we'll go ahead and get right to it. Tell us about how you got started, I guess, as far as, you know, your poetry. How did it all set up for you?
Well, I started writing when I was 14, basically just as a mess around, and it got more creative during the years. And originally my name was actually Mr. Grimez the Anti-Hero. And in 2010 I did an album with a producer in the UK called Junior Fuller. But also previous to that I did an EP with another producer called Jason Ellis. He changes his name all the time, but at the moment his name is Ronix. And we did an EP called Legend of the Underdog. So basically from these two projects I was Mr. Grimez Anti-Hero, and then I changed up into Mr. Grimez the Poet Warrior. So writing has really been going on for a very long time. It's been a development, still a development, and I'm just doing my thing, keeping it moving.
All right. Well, I mean, here in the United States, poetry is pretty big. You have nightclubs you can go to listen to it. Now, I have no idea what it's like over in the UK, but is it something that's pretty big? Is there a big fan base for it? A lot of people clamoring for it?
There is a scene over here. I'm sure maybe in your city you have, like, open mic events.
Yes.
I'm not sure if you have, but basically I would go to open mics. I like to go to ones that are pretty varied, so you get different kind of artists going there doing their thing. So I like to go to those ones. There are, like, poetry events specific for poetry, but this is what I just do. I just go to different areas in London and maybe try to venture out of London and do some poetry there. So I just keep it moving, really. I mean, there is quite a vibrant scene, and also there's other places, as I mentioned, out of London, like in other cities like Sheffield and Bristol. So It's not like there's a drought in any cases of trying to perform.
Okay, do you try to perform like a certain amount of times per week, or you just go when you feel it?
Yeah, I try to keep it consistent. Maybe sometimes it's 3 times a week, maybe it's twice a week, and maybe even once a week. But if you check on my YouTube channel, I'm always keeping the moves going, basically. I'm always doing something. So it's not like, I'm doing it like once every 2 months or anything. I've been quite consistent. I started on the circuit last year, August. I started off in a place called Tri-Space Gallery. And from there, things were quiet, and then it built up. And I've just been keeping that cycle going. So, yeah, it's pretty cool, to keep it moving.
Okay. Now, where do you get your inspiration for your poetry? I mean, is it something that just comes to you in the middle of the night, you wake up and start writing things down, or is it constant throughout the day? I mean, where's your motivation?
Mainly my motivation, it just comes from other artists. So I'm very much into Tribe Called Quest, EPMD, a lot of old school dudes. But also I can get my inspiration from science fiction films like Total Recall, The Matrix, even simple things like walking down the street. I might see a particular person or an event, and it just sparks some inspiration. So it can come from anywhere, any place. So I'm not limited to anything, if that makes sense. But I think with the poetry itself, you can kind of hear my influences and you can kind of see my perspective, if that makes sense. It kind of makes sense when you get into hearing it and absorbing it in.
Right. Okay, well, you can't go wrong with a Tribe Called Quest or EPMD. You can't go wrong at all there. And
That's
so
right.
the style of your poetry. Now, when I first listened, I listened to listened to you on SoundCloud and the song called "The Steam." And I guess what really kind of shocked me initially was when I see poet, I'm thinking just spoken word with no type of background music or anything like that. Not only do you have background music, I mean, it is nice, it is up tempo, it's really catchy. So, what gave you the idea for more of a high energy approach to the poetry?
Well, actually, I usually do my poems without any kind of backing track. Trust me, it makes a lot of things easy when I go to the open mics. But that was mainly an experiment with a producer called Rob Knowles, a.k.a. Audio 287. And he said to me, you should put some music with your poetry. And then that collaboration came about. And it's very interesting because Esteem is actually one of my most favorite tracks I've actually done. It just clicked with me straight away. I haven't performed it with that music, but that was just like an add-on, if that makes sense, just to see what it's like with the music, just to experiment. And it worked out well. So, yeah, it's kind of different in a way. I mean, you're probably not aware, like, in the UK and stuff, like, there's a music scene over here, like, with grime and dubstep. So there's all kind of different kind of sounds going on. Just like in America right now, there's all kind of different sounds like trap and old school hip hop. So it's very varied. But for me, I actually prefer to do poetry live without the music, because sometimes I feel like the music is a distraction. And I used to do, kind of like rapping poetry on music, like with my albums that I've put out. But this time I felt like, you know what, it's very important to just have the message there. You can still kind of hear that music can go with it, but it's just good to focus on the words.
Okay, most definitely. And I mean, you're very lyrically talented, and I've enjoyed I listened to The Steam a couple of times, and I think it was Supreme Warrior Mode was the other one that I checked out, and so I'm definitely going to go through. I think I'm missing Raw Technique. I'm going to check them all out when I get a chance on SoundCloud for sure. And so, have you? First of all, I want to back up for a second. I had no idea people listen to trap music in the UK. That is hilarious to me. But I never knew it traveled like that.
Yeah, we could get into a whole conversation about that. That would probably be another interview. But yeah, it's. I think you'd be very surprised what is actually going on in the UK. Boy, it's crazy. That's all I can say. There is a lot of influences from America over here, but sometimes people go on like, oh, we're not influenced from America. Look, I say I'm influenced from everything in the world. I don't turn around and say to people that, oh, I'm trying to create something brand new that hasn't been influenced from everything. Look, I just told you my influence is from the old school cats of America, like the EPMDs and the Tribe Called Quest. I don't feel shame about that. But there's some people that will turn around and say what they're making is exclusive, like they're God or something, So it's very interesting. I mean, if you hear some of the UK stuff, some people do rap on trap as well. But they'll turn around and say, oh, it's not trap. You know what I'm saying? But, it's very messy. But, hey, it's a lot of politics going on in the UK. That's all I can say.
Okay, all right.
A lot of politics.
Wow, I guess it's similar to the States, I guess, here in the States. But speaking of which, have you ever been to the United States? Do you think your poetry will land you here eventually?
Yes, hopefully soon. I was actually in America, like, it's quite a long time ago. It was before 9/11, back in 1999. So, yeah, that's a long time. I haven't been there for ages, so I don't know what America's like. But I get a few, American people, like, interested in what I'm doing and stuff like that. So I kind of get this worry where it's like, oh, maybe they won't understand it because of how I am. But I think a lot of American people do connect with it, which is really weird. but they do, so it's a good thing. I think what I like about America is that, people there, they're always looking for something fresh and new, and they have a certain kind of understanding. People have an understanding here, but sometimes they're scared to kind of do something different with what they're doing, and they won't push it as much, where I see that with America, as you see with some of the sounds, whether you hate it or not, people will push it out here. But even for me, I've had things where people were saying, well, why don't you just do grime music just to fit in? Why don't you do this type of music to fit in? And I say to people, why don't you just, be yourself and express who you want to be rather than trying to fit in? Because you could be the next breakout act rather than following what everyone else is doing, And some of the top names over here we have, in terms of the grime scene, which you can check out, is Skepta, JME, there's Wiley, but there's like a group called Boy Better Know. So they're kind of big on the grime scene over here. And I've seen that they've done interviews with American radio hosts as well. So it's pretty interesting. It seems like grime is getting over to America now as well. So it's pretty cool. Not that I do that, but
Okay.
It seems to be like, in the UK you have to be labelled as something. You probably get in America where if you're a new artist, you have to be doing probably trap music in order to, as they say, make it. So I don't know, it's a mess, as I mentioned.
I understand, and it is pretty similar here. But one thing about here in the States, everyone here appears to have love for the UK, because there are a lot of artists from the UK who have made it big here. And also, spoken word is very big, especially on the East Coast, in the New York area, New Jersey, all the way down to the South, and Florida and Georgia and places like that. So there's definitely a market for spoken word. Is always appreciated. And now I live in Jackson, Mississippi, which is the deep south of the United States, and I can think of about 4 or 5 spoken word places just within 10 miles of me. So it's very popular here. So I know my listeners will be able to resonate with what you do for sure. But let me ask you this one last question, and we'll go ahead and wrap things up. What are your immediate upcoming plans? Do you have any performances just in the next month or two in the UK that you want to talk about, or something that you're excited about?
There's nothing coming up special at the moment. Sometimes it kind of happens random where an event comes up, if that makes sense. But basically, I'm just keeping it moving with open mics, just poetry, more poetry. That's really it. There's nothing I can say that's exclusive that's coming out, which I know may disappoint a few people, but there's nothing really I can say. It's just open mics as usual. What I am trying to do is I'm just trying to expand myself and trying to find exclusive events and do other things a little bit different. That's really about it, really, Just to mention before we go, it's within the scene in the UK, like I said, there's lots of open mics happening in the city, so I can always stretch myself out and try new places. But that's really it, really, just a poet warrior fighting the politics as usual. That's it, and the drones as well. That's it.
Okay. Well, all right, Mr. Grimes, Poet Warrior, I appreciate you taking the time to join the Talk to Q radio show. And in the meantime, in between your sets, we'll be sure to check you out on SoundCloud. You can look for him under Mr. Grimes, Poet Warrior, and that's Grimes, Grimez. You can find him on Twitter at Mr. Grimes Real. And check him out on YouTube, Mr. Grimes, the Anti-Hero /videos. Check him out on YouTube. And I'll make sure for those listening that I will provide links on the show page where you can just click and go and listen to my man's music. You got to listen to it. The poetry is nice. So, Mr. Grimes, I appreciate you joining the show.
Thank you. And as I always say, F the beef, increase the peace. Poet Warrior, I'm out.
Nice. All right, and that's going to do it for another Q-on-1 podcast edition of the Talk to Q radio show. For more information, go to talktoq.com and check out my calendar for upcoming events. Everyone, enjoy your day. Peace out. All right, listeners, now what I'm going to do, I'm going to treat you to some spoken words from Mr. Grimez, Poet Warrior. And Mr. Grimez, I'll let you set up the piece that's getting ready to play.
All right, so this is called The Steam. This is a collaboration with Audio 287. Basically, this is one of my favorite poems, definitely, besides Choose Wisely. But with this poem, I decided it to be very kind of long. Usually when I do it live, it's 2 verses, but this has, I think it has about 4 verses, I think, something like that, but it's quite long.
All right, everyone. Yeah. Well, here comes The Steam. Check it out, Mr. Grimez, Poet Warrior.
Yes, once again, Mr. Grimez, Poet Warrior. SC25 2015. Here we go. Ha! I write this poem in 2013. You hear this in the future. I had to let off some steam. Never let people's bull crap restrict. So I move with invincibility. See past holograms. It's clear to see the nonsense. Back to school. Social media contest. Popularity game. Get your numbers. Superficial mentality. A poisonous consciousness. London BS becomes the international virus. So protect your town. It's contagious. Meanwhile the industry turns more outrageous. Stormtroopers, lock up your speech with the word cages. Demons, pull out the red tape. So we had to hit them with the vapors. Hit them with the vapors. I had to let off some steam. I ain't got time for your scams and schemes. Hit them with the vapors. I had to let off some steam. I ain't got time for your scams and schemes. Hit them with the vapors. I had to let off some steam. I ain't got time for your scams and schemes. Hit them with the vapors. I had to let off some steam. I ain't got time for your scams and schemes. You want the Disney talk? Go somewhere else. Don't you know too much Mickey Mouse is bad for your health? You can't damage my career by operating into stealth mode. Get that into your thick skull. Wake up and smell the curry goat. Take that negative crap back to South Florida. Why ruin a friendship? Oh, so you wanna make it crystal clear you are my enemy. Sorry, you no longer exist in my reality. This situation will fade to black like Scorpion's annihilation fatality. You're obsessed with the past, get some help to deal with that insanity. You really do need it. You are crazy, man. Hit them with the vapors, I had to let off some steam. I ain't got time for your scams and schemes. Hit them with the vapors, I had to let off some steam. I ain't got time for your scams and schemes. Hit them with the vapors, I had to let off some steam. I ain't got time for your scams and schemes. Hit them with the vapors, I had to let off some steam. I ain't got time for your scams and schemes. Big hairy beast with a malicious intent. Get out of here or deal with the vapors. It's a one-way trip to hell or limbo. Let the dark side rest. There's no need to form a gang of stress. Automated messages with no answers. Get vaporized with the power of 13. It's awful that some folks be masturbating to Britain's Got Talent, getting high on X Factor, leaving success in Simon Cowell's hands. No disrespect to him, but where's your balls, man? To create music without the industry raping your style. Reality TV shows have raped your mind, planting the seed, giving birth to false beliefs, with a stink-ass attitude like your uncle's feet. Hit them with the vapors, I had to lies, the type of lies that get you killed. I'm not saving your ass. You want to destroy everything in your environment and take others down with you? Innocent people in coffins because of stupidity. I had to let off some steam, tell it like it is. Abusing men, women and children. You're truly sick because the power is your stimulus. You're the manager of the company, but you've got no respect for yourself or other beings. Your mental condition needs healing. Hit them with the vapors, I had to let off some steam. I ain't got time for your scams and schemes. Hit them with the vapors, I had to let off some steam. I ain't got time for your scams and schemes. Hit them with the vapors, I had to let off some steam. I ain't got time for your scams and schemes. Hit them with the vapors, I had to let off some steam. I ain't got time for your scams and schemes.
The novels of Crystal Hickerson, The Magician, the metaphysical action drama about the fight between good and evil which holds the fate of man in the balance. Street Corners, a tragic romantic crime saga of a man who has the hearts of two very different women in his hands. The choice he makes will hurt them both. Wanted, a ghostly story about a woman caught between the planes of life and death. It is left up to the reader to decide which reality was real. The Volunteer, the struggle of a man with his career and his life teetering on thin ice. Can love truly conquer all? And if you think this is the end for Crystal, you would be wrong. For as you listen to this, a new dynamic tale is on the way. Go to crystalhickerson.com to purchase all of her novels. Follow her on social media and listen to her on the radio at thecrystalshow.com. Enter the amazing world at crystalhickerson.com.